Tonight, we continue to feature extracts from an interview with the President of the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities.
So key on our agenda for 2019 is advocacy, sensitization, more media campaigns, because before we go out and seek empowerment and inclusiveness from policymakers and business places, we as persons with disabilities need to be empowered internally. One of the most exciting areas for us to do that is in our own terminology, what we call disability etiquette. What we realize among our membership and society as a whole, we do not use the most appropriate phrases, or phrases which are now frowned upon and have a limiting language are still used. Let me give you an example. We say things like bound to a wheelchair, or this person is confined to a wheelchair. Listen to that language. You know the relationship users of wheelchairs have with their device, that it is an extension of their person. It is something which enables them to access the world. They're not prisoners in it. So when we stress on person first language, we can never go wrong. So this is a person who uses a wheelchair. This is not a disabled person. This is a person with a disability. It's not the blind or the deaf, but persons who are blind or persons with hearing impairment. Across the city, I commend the fact that we have what we call accessible parking spots that many people refer to as handicapped parking or handicapped washrooms, but the correct terminology is accessible. Because you see, the thing is, once you put in infrastructure to benefit persons with disabilities, once you put in ramps and elevators, it benefits everyone. Persons without disabilities can easier access places when elevators and ramps are there. So utilizing infrastructure which is accessible, you make your city, your villages, your public spaces look better. You make it accessible not just to your citizens but to your tourists with disabilities, your investors. You may wonder, what do persons with disabilities wish to say to the Minister of Tourism? The tourists with disabilities market is a multi-billion-dollar annual market. When you can embark on a campaign to show our policymakers why it's important to ensure that Port Castries is one of the most accessible cities in the Caribbean, this can boost our image regionally and internationally. When the growing number of tourists who come off cruise ships with wheelchairs and power chairs can easily wheel themselves around our city and access business places, this is a rating in itself that could give us a competitive edge. So in order for us to take advantage of this multi-billion-dollar tourists with disabilities market, it's important that we dialogue with tourism officials to show them that our hotels need an accessibility rating. How accessible are you? Can someone go online and see that such and such resort scores high on the accessibility because persons who use wheelchairs, persons with intellectual and developmental issues are catered to, that we have hotels and restaurants with menus in Braille, that we have services for the hearing impaired, that staff are specially trained in this competitive world. It's the edge that will always put you on top. With the new Uwanora Airport redevelopment project, it is our hope, though we were not heavily consulted, but it is our hope that we are utilizing the state-of-the-art, most modern, accessible technology. Why? We have the case in point example of Dublin Airport in Ireland, which won the international award for the most accessible airport, because the technologies in there that enable tourists with disabilities, visitors, persons who are blind on wheelchairs to easily move around the airport. There are facilities where people who have their guide dogs, imagine that there are places for dogs to relieve themselves at an airport. These are the technologies, and an airport like that is a tourist attraction in itself, you know. Persons without disabilities would want to travel to such places and see this airport with all of this technology. And we need to think that way in this globally competitive world. So our council has advice and recommendations across all ministerial portfolios. And in certain developed parts of the world and other countries, priority is given to having a ministerial portfolio for disability. We have ministers of state in the office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for disability. Disability is not carried in any ministerial portfolio here, and this is where we need to go. because persons with disabilities are the largest minority in the world, and you need to signal our commitment by placing it at these high levels. Last year, to commemorate International Day of Persons with Disabilities, our council sought permission to and received it to be part of the last sitting of Parliament in 2017. What was very interesting was that politicians on the government and the opposition side gave great praise and great mention to the fact that we once had a parliamentarian, a senator, who used a wheelchair in the House, and they celebrated it. But what was funny to me, the celebration of this past event, this is not like the death of Sir John, who will never come back. The government side, the opposition side, the Governor General at any point can appoint a person with a disability to the Senate, to always make it current that we are serious about having persons with disabilities in the highest offices in our land, in the chamber where our laws are drafted and debated and passed.
So is it your hope that in 2019,
yes,
that we will finally see the ratification?
It is my fervent desire, and we will dialogue cordially, cooperatively to ensure that our government ratifies the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
How long have you been waiting for this?
The convention was signed onto in 2011. Yes, by the then UWP administration in 2011. So all that is required is for us to ratify it, to bring it into full effect with the literal stroke of a pen. And if this convention was ratified, this situation at this infant school would never be in our media or public discussion today. It would never have happened.
This is the CTV News. Stay with us. There is more ahead.